There was a video on here called Sharing Space that I can actually bring up, but it's the piece that's on the title card that is my daughter Chloe and I, who you've already heard from. She's constantly sort of getting into my clothes and then getting out of them, and there's a couple of humorous moments where she actually gets strangled as she's coming out of my shirt, and I don't know it because we're just, doing these sketches, and it's just kind of a funny moment where I'm not really aware of what's going on, even though it's right in front of me. Kind of this continual rebirthing. And what this show for me is a large part about is this idea of being cut from the same cloth, where there's no longer an umbilical that is connecting the two of us, but where there's sort of a separation and sort of this longing for the other that is no longer there, that can't always be cared for or watched over or, physically, which, she's school age, she's out and about and doing other things. So the wood pieces kind of speak to that directly, where it's talking about that cut from the same cloth, whereas before other work that I've done, there's been a quite literal kind of transition from me to her. This is more of a extraction, so much like the birthing process, as well as this growing process. So I think a lot of the visual growth that she actually has a tendency to measure up against me. Oh, Mom, I'm this tall now, or I'm this tall, or this tall. And, saying, oh, we say those clothes for me, or this kind of thing. And, the measuring up against one another, being a cut of the same cloth, but then a removal where that, again, sort of mimicking or talking about this absence that is no longer necessarily, not in your visual, presence where you can be taking care of the person. So the insides aren't being shown in this work. It's sort of delineating the difference between the two people. And in some of the work that I'll show you, some of the prior work that I had done was highlighting the space between two of our interactions. And this is sort of highlighting the separation or the difference between the two. The drywall piece was a performance piece that lasted 4 hours during the opening of this show. As of yet, it's untitled, but what it consisted of was the clean drywall, and I was inside, in between the wall and the window, and I started to, basically in a sort of diaristic or letter type way, communicate my guilt or, my sort of questioning of my ability to do enough or be present enough or, for my parenting aspects. So a lot of my work has dealt with language, and I was interested in kind of annihilating the material of the construction material of drywall through language by sort of weakening it in a way with language. This, as well as being a little bit of an institutional critique where inside the gallery you are in a privileged space, but yet the language is not necessarily for you. It's written backwards in this instance. And then outside of the gallery, the language is privileging you, but you are not in the space. You are not a part of it necessarily. Likewise, my back was constantly facing the street. It wasn't necessarily for any particular, I wasn't on a stage in a way. So I was also interested in this barrier sort of becoming perforated in the sense that light would be coming through during the daytime, and then at night the light is being penetrated through to the outside. This piece is still very new to me. 4 hours and a sore hand and a sore body, non-stop. I didn't stop at all, and I'm not sure that it's necessarily done. So I'll have to sit on that a little bit longer. Maybe there'll be another installation of it, another incarnation. So, moving right along, this grouping of canvases are called Cosmic Scribbles and Boutonnieres, and they were sort of an exercise in, it was a collaboration between my daughter and I. Again, this kind of attempt from where, there's a certain agency and individualism that's growing with age that wasn't there maybe a year ago. And so, I did this project both to have a certain amount of time spent together, to allow for a certain kind of agency for her, and to see what would happen as an end result. I'd say about over half of them are true collaborations where one was started by me and then passed on to her, or vice versa. And then the other half were done only together. So it was sort of my sort of system that would inevitably make us spend more time together, which we spend a lot of time together really anyway. So, but yeah, I think that there's sort of, the Cosmic Scribbles are sort of these things that actually started when she was about 2. I would kind of let her, scribble on a piece of paper, and then I would proceed to kind of color in the holes, much like those are. And we've continued this process now for about 6 years in a lot of, and then this is probably the first one that is actually on canvas. I still look at these kind of like sculptures. I mean, I have a background in sculpture, undergrad and grad school, so even these canvases are sculptures to me. And then the boutonnieres are these sort of little bits of excess that kind of developed during the making of these that I came to love more, or not more, but equally and differently than the Cosmic Scribbles, in a way that they were these little pieces of excess. They were the pieces that were cut off and sort of discarded. And I've always sort of had this love for that excess, that sort of cut off. Luce Irigaray, a French feminist theorist, talks about woman being a reflection of man, but in excess of. So almost like a mere reflection, everything that is the same, but only that excess piece. So a lot of my work has a tendency to deal with that kind of notion and language and maternity. Finally, this maternal list, I titled it not maternal list, I titled it verb list. And if you guys have ever heard of Richard Serra's verb list, his list is largely things that you would do to a material. So to bend, to crease, to fold, to break, to pour, to, and then he does stuff of electromagnetic or of, this kind of thing. So I tried to take his list verbatim visually and take verbs that were strictly maternal verbs. And not necessarily what I would do to a child, but what happens within that relationship. So again, that's sort of trying to take a little bit more sort of like a feminist, maternal way, whereas I'm not acting upon something as a subject-object kind of notion, but more in collaboration with, because as anybody that has children knows, it's not just one-sided. I mean, there's a continual back and forth. So my maternal verbs are like to birth, to split, to bear, to hold, to reprimand, to encourage. So it's not just entirely one-sided. To question, which also sort of mirrors the language in this drywall piece. Also, I guess it maybe needs to be said that this isn't only about me and my child. It's more about this notion of maternity, and I think that there's a larger sort of understanding of a general feeling that this is a universal to a certain degree. We all have a tendency to question if we've done enough with our partners, or family or children or whatever. So, all right, I'll show you. Maybe I'll show you a couple of older pieces. Is that okay to tie in some of the work? Maybe because they're all kind of recent past. This is my thesis. Oh, yeah, you can see that. This is the thesis show that I did in April. I just graduated from Ohio University in sculpture and expanded practice after 10 years in between undergrad and grad school. But you can see that there are these wood pieces on the left-hand side of the wall are called spaces in between. And again, it's this plywood kind of pedestrian construction material that I'm interested in, not trying to hide what the material is, but really just be the material that it is. It's not about that materiality. It is the construction of an idea, but not necessarily this veneer or sort of hiding that materiality. So these pieces, spaces in between, are talking about this connected space between Chloe and I in all its different sort of forms. I mean, there's much more than just those 6, but I don't know if you can see on this one our 2 heads sort of, facing face to face this way. This is us holding hands. So it's the negative, it's the positive of the negative. So I'm playing with these ideas and we're connected. I was talking before about that umbilical of the 2 of past work. This is sort of that umbilical that I'm still considering in this work that is different in the trajectory of this work. This was the photographs that were taken sort of, and this all the photographs in the video is always just she and I. It's not like there's somebody behind that she's playing to the camera or I'm playing to the camera. It's just more the sketch work. But these are the photographs that I used as like almost like a sign language instead of having a title card, off to the side. I just used the actual photos that I thought was still abstract enough to talk about it. This is a performance piece called Imbalance With, and it was this 16-foot long seesaw piece, 16-foot long seesaw, and all these sort of household and studio and items of our lives. So there's a bicycle and my research books and my Italian, coffee pot and my cast iron skillet and, dirty laundry and potatoes and food and stuff like that. And so throughout the performance, those are my books. Throughout the performance, I proceed to basically add items to, that's freezing it. Add items to, so it starts off blank, and this is the umbilical, this notion of the umbilical. So the seesaw, it's empty, we both get on, I'm clearly heavier, so I get off and she stays on, and then I proceed to add more things, bungee cording, one item at a time, or one grouping of items at a time. So the first thing on is, this crate that has, her violin, her toys, sketchbook, books, stuff like that, so that she's sort of occupied. The notion is that I can only do my work so long as she's occupied and, content. I talk like she, but you're here. It's like really weird for me. This is the first lecture that I've given with like Chloe here. But, and, at this particular time, this was during my opening, but this, we had practiced and practiced and practiced, and all the times that we practiced, of course, the one time that we're actually doing it live, I get stuck. I mean, this is full weight on here. And I realized, well, sometimes you gotta readjust that balance. So, I get back down, I sort of just have to slide down because I'm obviously wedged up there. And I get back down and readjust and, achieve this balance, and at which time the audience sort of applauds and, they think that the performance is over, but it's not about that either. It's like you have to achieve that balance, but then you also have to maintain the balance. So we sort of continued doing that until Chloe's kind of fed up and ready to get down. And that's been that notion of the umbilical where we are very much apart, together, connected, doing this in conjunction with one another because I can't do my work unless she's content and occupied. And so that's what I was trying to get from this work through to, I guess, kind of this work. The next, that's the video. You can go to my website, has the video and all of that stuff. And then, what remains is this, the sculpture that kind of, there's no video in the exhibition, to show what had happened. It's just the sculpture and this photograph. So the last thing I'll show you is just this word piece that ties into a lot of the other language work, which is currently up in Nelsonville, Ohio, Nelsonville here at the Majestic Galleries. It comes down tomorrow. So anyway, this was the Richard Serra words, or the maternal verbs that are on this list, cut out of this silver paper, and it's being installed perpendicular to the wall, so that the gallery lights cast down through the words and onto the wall. And sometimes the gallery lights crisscross and kind of blur out some of the words, creating sort of an erasure or a doubling. Again, kind of, this is actually, that's actually the Richard Serra, his actual verb list that you can look at. So that's a close-up of the word, the foil. It's also this idea of cut from the same cloth, that sort of extraction, the negative of the positive, getting rid of, creating language out of a negative to a certain degree. So is it really, sort of a constant kind of questioning if it's really actually there. So that's it. I think.
So Chloe, which piece do you like best that's here in this room?
I'd say particularly all of them, but actually my most favorite one that I liked to do with my mom, which was the boutonnieres and the cosmic scribbles, because I got to interact with my mom and actually be with her and spend time and create. So, yeah.
Cool.
Were any of you guys at the opening for the performance? You were?
Yeah, where were you at the end? After 4 hours, did someone just tell you?
Well, yeah, the gallery was closing.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting sort of, I think with a lot of performance work, you can plan and plan and plan and then not know what the outcome is going to be, or something could happen that changes the outcome, creating a different sort of outcome. And initially, I had intended on, writing these sort of these words of question and doubt and, kind of like second guessing and whatnot. So much so that it would sort of pierce through this construction material, and that I would almost not break out in a heroic way, but sort of just escape. And when they said the gallery was closing, I was like, oh, I guess I'll just stop and try to think about what this means. So,
What did you use to carve into that with?
those, just the hand drywall saw, the pointy, really jagged one, and I think that's why there's so much debris, and where some of the holes kind of fall through because it's going this way and then it just falls forward or something.
I think the whole entire part of the clothing was when I was,
Should put that on.
sometimes when I got really cold in this restaurant one day, and I said, Mom, can I wear your jacket? And she was like, no. So then I put my arm into her jacket, and I put my other one into her other jacket, and that sort of became a artist sort of piece of
Yeah, it was
sort of, it kind of goes, it tags along with this. It doesn't, it sort of to see how my clothing could go into hers and actually fit. But it's hard to explain, sort of.
I put the video up so in case you haven't seen it before, and that might help. I don't know why it's doing this actually on Vimeo. It wasn't doing this before. It's only when I think whenever it's connected to the projector, or like the projector cord, but that's also on the website too. Yeah. This was the choking moment that I had no idea what was going on until she was like, Mom.
Okay.
Then I didn't know when we were gonna actually put it on video and show it to other people.
Are you embarrassed?
No,
Okay,
not
I
at all.
think so. Well, a lot of that was the collaboration too. I mean, I had no, and that's part of the sort of agency. It's like, as she grows older, I have no control over certain things. So that's what a large part of that is, so.
I think that's part of like, I don't know, makes that video really warm too, like being goofballs together.
Yeah.
Being comfortable enough to be goofballs.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So, are you embarrassed? Because that's kind of how we are anyway.
You were talking about there's actually parts of that look like how actually a child was born coming out.
Yeah, from the video. Yeah, that's what I started saying, that constant birthing process in a way that, even just in the shirt, we actually tried a skirt that it didn't make sense because, you'd be able to cover your own, I don't know, or pants we were going to try, but then it
Yeah,
didn't work.
because then I figured out, I was like, ooh, that might be a bad idea.
Yeah.
That would be like this.
Yeah,
I'd be in her pants, and her pants would go up to here, in here.
yeah,
And I would put my hands in here, and I'd put my feet into the leggings, but the legs would be too big. So then I thought, well then I might have to just not be able to do it because that's not going to work. Because my legs are not as big as Mom.
yes, that's right. So, a constant learning process over and over.
Yes. Very much.
Are there any other questions or comments? Comments?
My favorite was when Chloe played the violin.
Oh, with the other
She
one?
played the Beethoven.
Yeah.
Ode to Joy.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.